Welcome back. Wait till you hear our next guest. He is a triple threat. He's a poet, he's an artist, and he's a cook. We are going to hear some wonderful things, including some amazing Italian recipes. My name is Vin Dacquino. His name is Michael Falotico.
Nice to meet you.
Michael, poetry, art, recipes. Talk to me. Who is Michael Falotico?
Well, everything is intertwined. I believe creativity starts on the paper, whether you're writing a recipe, whether you're writing a poem, or whether I'm doing a sketch. I started back in 2010. I had a rotator cuff surgery.
Wow.
And I had a lot of free time in my hand throughout the therapy. And I going through boxes with my sling arm, you know, and just going through stuff. And I found a lot of old lyrics that I wrote because I always was I'm a Beatle fan. So I always loved to write, you know, my own lyrics. But I don't play music. I can't sing. I can't dance. That's not going to happen up here. And
So you're not going to be singing and dancing for us today? Oh, man.
So I contacted my brother, who's done editing before, and he worked for pharmaceutical companies with another company right now. And I'm like, what do I do with this? He said, well, you should join a poetry site. And I'm like, I gave him a look like, you know what? I'm the furthest thing from a poet. He said, believe me, it's poetry. Yeah. So I Googled, you know, poetry sites, and the first thing that came up on there was poetry soup. There was a picture of a bowl of soup, which was, you know, got me food. I'm looking at that right away. And I put 8 poems on there. And they blossomed a little bit and got some good feedback. And as time went on, I started writing more, and you started polishing the craft a little bit more. And people were inquiring, are you writing a book? Did you write a book? I'm like, no, I'm just doing this for fun. And then I started taking it more seriously. And we had a death in our family, and I wrote about that. My brother put it on social media, and he's like, well, now everybody knows you're right. So then at that point, I wrote Walk Through Time in 2010. And that is a collection. I was given in an old relationship I had years ago. An ex-girlfriend told me, she says, you keep things inside you too much. She said, I'm going to give you an exercise, because she was a journalist at the time. Write down what bothers you, fold it, and put it in the drawer. And I looked at her like, yeah, okay.
Yeah, right.
You know something? It was a release mechanism.
Yeah.
And those 3 poetry books you see here are basically all my folded up pieces of paper that were put in a drawer. So I basically just channeled everything. And then once you share it, you know, it's nerve-wracking to share something very personal that you write, whether you're writing like you write or like what I write in poetry. But once you do it, you open up a door, you open up a window inside yourself. Yeah. And you're always a writer at that point.
Yeah, and you get the spark going. I attribute my first novel to an idea that a writer friend, Roberta Silman, who's an incredible writer, she said to me, Vin, here's what I want you to do. Write a poem a day. If you write a poem a day, you're going to be writing a novel. I promise you. She was right. I wrote a poem a day, which became 2 poems a day, sometimes 3,
Absolutely.
sometimes 12. But by writing each day, I was able to light the spark, you know, and it happened. And one thing leads to another.
You took those walls down. I mean, like I say, I'm a Beatle fan. My second book, I'm actually standing at Strawberry Fields in Central Park.
Oh, man.
And that had to be my cover of my book. My last poetry book, which was Reflections, I took the photography for that Central Park. So I love New York. I mean, I'm an Eastchester guy.
Yeah.
You know, I've worked for the Eastchester Parks Department now for 29 years.
Wow.
So most of my life, I'm going to be 52 in the coming weeks, have been doing something that has nothing to do with this. And then little by little, everything surrounds food. I mean, I'm Italian.
Yeah.
My family I have a family of cooks where we could just open up our own restaurant if we wanted to.
Yeah.
And I just started cooking, and then I'm like, you know what? If I'm going to write a cookbook, what better name for it would be than the Poet's Table at that point.
And it actually, all of this brought you to your passion, which is cooking.
Well, the thing is, when I ended Reflections, which took me a long time to write, and I really enjoyed doing it, I was coming home from work at 4 o'clock, and I'm like, what do I do now? So then I just picked up a sketch pad, and I started drawing. And these are just a few of the drawings that I have.
Now, this first drawing, is there a story behind it?
Absolutely no. I just, you know what, I Googled ideas, and I basically took what I saw and altered it mine, kind of like I do with cooking. I just Google a recipe on something, and then I'll just basically say, let me go to the next one. You know, let me add something to it. Oh, we're going this way. It's facing that way. Okay. And they're simple drawings. There's nothing spectacular. You know what? I don't call myself an artist because I guess once you sell something, then you're an artist. You know, when
you are definitely an artist.
And this one just for a young girl.
Now, are there poems that go with these? Or?
No, not particularly. I don't intertwine that. I haven't intertwined that really. I just liked it's just another way to fill my time in, and I think you should fill your time by being creative.
Yeah.
You know, there's an old quote that I read from Vincent van Gogh that said, if something in your head, something in your mind tells you you can't paint, then by all means paint, and the voice will be silenced.
Yeah. You know, when I work with writers, I tell them there are 5 elements of writing: plot, character, setting, theme, and tone. And poets say to me, oh, duh, poets don't do that. I said, oh, yes, they do.
Oh, yes, you do.
Now, however, a poem could focus on just one. It could be a character. It could be a little girl with a teddy bear. It could be setting. It could be a particular place. It could be strawberry fields.
Yes.
Whatever it is, the goal is to capture either a particular place, a particular person, a particular moment, a particular feeling or aura, a particular message.
Well, I can give you an example. Well, I can give you an example on that because actually in the final book, there are poems for a friend of mine who I grew up with who lost her dad, and she only had one picture of him with her. So I'm like, send me the picture online, and I'll write you something. And I wrote a poem called Daddy's Girl for her.
Wow. And
then I'll write something, the horrific time back when Sandy went up in Sandy Hook with the children.
Oh.
The day that happened, my wife and I was sitting, my wife Rosanna and I was sitting watching it on TV, and you know we're both crying watching it. And in literally 3 minutes, I wrote a poem called Angels in the Sky, posted it on Facebook. We left for the night to go do whatever we do, and the next day there was practically 150 shares of it.
Yep.
And it made it onto the Newtown Chamber of Commerce.
Wow.
And it got recognized in the newspaper, and it's nice to see that just something I wrote for 3 minutes became that. Or I've written for 9/11. I mean, I've written things about 9/11 that were recognized. Another one would be the famous dust lady of Marsha. I think her name was Marsha Peters, I believe her name was. And I went through Facebook and searched around for relatives, and I wanted to get the poem to her because it was a nice poem about her with a picture of her alive and a picture of her, you know, covered in the dust and it made it to the family.
Tell me the story about that. I don't know about the dust lady.
It was 9/11, right after everything happened, and she was one of the people they caught walking, and she was on the cover, I believe, of the Post and the Daily News, just standing there, looks like a statue covered in dust.
Oh my God.
And she died later on in life from other complications, I think, attributed to that. But
sure.
And it was, you know, it was nice to know it made it to the family at that point, you know, and it's something small like that, or just a love poem to my wife. All right, because now, you know, I've set the standard so high that I can't go buy a regular anniversary card. I have to write my own now.
You walk around with a notebook in your pocket, or what?
I walk around with my iPhone, and during the day I have the luxury of working by myself a lot. So I'll be working on, like I said, we do baseball fields, soccer fields, lacrosse fields, and I'll be on the tractor, and I'm like, you know something? Hey, I got something comes in my head, and you know what? That may be the first line, it might be the title, it might be the whole poem. And then that just took off that way. And then, like I said, no matter what I'm doing, I'm like, you know something? I love cooking.
Yeah.
You know what? And to me, cooking is art. The colors of it. I mean, we were just going through the book, and you're looking at the colors of red and white.
I was looking at the
you were getting hungry. And you were getting hungry.
I got hungry because many of the recipes that you have in there, I grew up with.
Exactly.
You have a recipe in there called arrangine.
Yes.
Which is basically a rice ball.
Mm-hmm.
And for us, it was very important because my father would only make rice balls New Year's. And at midnight, we finally got to taste the arrangine. And he had a special way of doing it where he would get chopped meat and put it in the center by making making a groove in the rice ball and then putting them in there. And I see you have arrangine in there.
Absolutely. That had to be in there.
The amazing thing about your recipes is the simplicity of them.
I've tried to make it like my poetry and like my drawing. Everything is, I'm making it like that. Anybody can do this. I mean, my whole family can cook. I mean, I got competition when the holidays. Who's making what? Who's making? And my mother will be dictating. You're making this. You're making this. You're making that, and we're all making it.
We had a wonderful thing on Sundays. My father would take us visiting on a Sunday morning. This is after church. You know, we do our thing, and we would go to all of my aunt's house, and he had a couple of friends. And each place we went on a Sunday morning, they all had the same basic tradition.
Sauce and meatballs, right?
Sauce and meatballs. What they used to do is they fried their meatballs on a Sunday morning so that they could put them in the sauce, and then it sat and soaked in the sauce all day until it was time for dinner. Well, we would visit during the meatball frying time. So every one of my aunts had a different recipe. I could close my eyes and taste it and go, Aunt Angie.
Yep.
Aunt Vita. And it was amazing. They all had their own style. So I imagine you have your own.
Yeah, there's definitely. Because you know what? Yeah. I mean, they're not my mother's, they're not my sisters, they're not my, I mean, like I said, both sides of my family. And my brother's side. I mean, everybody makes something and everybody cooks something. And I'm like, they all could do what I did. I just took this to the page.
My father's recipe will make you crazy. Because I would say to him, how much salt do you put in? He goes, a pinch.
Well, let me explain to you. It was harder to write the cookbook than it was the poetry books. Because I had to remember the recipes.
Yeah.
Because some of it, you're just doing by memory. You know, I'm like, okay, well, wait, what was that?
And some of our greatest family recipes are buried.
Yeah.
You know, they left with the aunts and the uncles. And the funniest thing is, you know, you say, you know, there's a taste in here I can't recognize. And my aunt would say, yeah. I say, and she'd say, yeah.
Yep.
Not going to give it up.
Nobody wants to share that, though.
Yeah, it's funny. And recipes become part of our life.
Absolutely.
And poetry, the wonderful thing about poetry is that it captures a moment. Is there any central theme that you have in your poems?
Yeah, a lot of it is, I like to write about actually how to write. I'll write a poem called The Moving Pen, or What Moves the Pen, or How the Pen Screams, or gentle, I like to play with words. I'm very much a Lennon McCartney Beatle kind of a guy, and I like the idea of a two-sided look to how something is, where somebody, the best compliment I think I ever got was somebody's like, I have to read your poem twice.
Yeah,
because you need to get it. Or I had somebody once say it was Lennon-like, which was, that was worth all the sales.
I am also a Beatles fan. Yeah. Last year was one of the highlights of my life. We have friends in England, and they invited us to visit. And they said, is there anything particular that you'd like to see? And I said, Liverpool?
Yeah.
And they said, Liverpool! We're not far from Liverpool. They took me to Liverpool. Oh my God!
It's on my bucket list. That's on my bucket list.
I went to the Cavern.
You went to the Cavern, Abbey Road.
Abbey Road, and I ferried across the Mersey.
Very nice. Very nice.
I heard that song. So ferry across the Mersey. Never even realized the Mersey was a river, and it was a real ferry. And they played the song while I rode across on the ferry. When you get off, they're standing on the shore, 4 life-size statues of the Beatles. It was wonderful.
And there, you know what it is? It's timeless, because I also go to, I've been to the school in the Bronx called Jonas Bronk Academy. I've also worked with the Eastchester High School Poetry Club.
Wow.
I've gone to a school in Larchmont. And the kids at that age know the Beatles. Wow. And I'm going to be 52, so obviously I was a child, so I learned it like they're learning it, basically, and it's good to see it stands the test of time. But I also incorporate with my writing, and they should,
And it's interesting to see that your poetry ended up in a cookbook.
Yeah.
Because I do something a little different. I have this book, for example, Mary Loved Daisies. Mary Loved Daisies is written in verse. The whole book is written in verse. And each verse is 10 lines. So I do 10-line poem, 10 poems to a section, 3 sections to a chapter, and then like 7 chapters to the book. And doesn't rhyme, doesn't have any particular beat or rhythm, but each verse can stand on its own. Talk to me about your rhyme scheme. Do you rhyme? Do you not
do.
rhyme?
I rhyme. I write mostly couplet.
Oh.
So I love the rhyming. Definitely, I love the rhyming. But my poetry is very short. It can be a 6-line poem, but it is going to punch you in one of the lines where you're going to be like, wow, that stuck with me. That line stuck with me. There has to be something that has to really jump out at you.
Yeah, I try to do the same thing.
Otherwise, you know what? I mean, you can write one that's a paragraph long, and that's the same thing with me with the recipes. I got intimidated when I go to a bookstore I'm looking, wow, this page, wow, this is gonna take a while to cook. Where you open mine up, as we just looked at it, it's a paragraph this big, and it's simplified for anybody can do it basically. And I want everybody, I started off posting my pictures on Facebook and on Instagram, and and my wife, Rosanna, developed celiac recently, so this book is also gluten-free, which is a pretty big target right now. You're hitting with people on that. And it's changed our definite scheme of cooking.
I'll tell you the truth. I really feel I missed the boat by not reading the recipes before today, because I would have made you bring some of those. I could have had an arancine. Oh man!
We might have been eating more than we're talking here right now. That's good. Nothing wrong with that, though.
Yeah, it's amazing. Now we're ready for the kicker.
Okay.
Your cookbook is gluten-free.
Yes.
So talk to me a little bit about that. This is not an ordinary cookbook.
No, it's not. And I tried to, because when everybody heard it's gluten-free, right away you get
go,
that look on their face.
What Italian wants gluten-free?
So when you look at the pictures and you look at the book itself, and I was getting feedback online, that's not gluten-free. I'm like, that's gluten-free. I make a homemade gnocchi, and it's the flour.
Wow.
I'm changing the flour that I'm using. I've yet to master the dough properly that I want yet for a pizza, because it takes a little while, but I'm still going to do that. But
so you make a gluten-free pizza?
No, I'm going to make a gluten-free pizza.
You want to work on that?
Yeah, I want to make my own pasta. I want to do that.
Yeah.
But there's a lot. It changed a lot of your ingredients.
It changes everything.
It changed.
So basically, gluten-free means that you can't use ordinary dough.
You can't use ordinary dough. It's wheat and barley.
It's
you
the
can't
flour.
Use, you have to. You know what? I bought the encyclopedia of gluten-free for my wife, and that's when I started saying, you know what? I got to change what I'm cooking.
Yeah.
And then I started tasting it myself, because I'm diabetic. So what's good for her is not good for me, and vice versa.
So your recipes have to keep diabetes in mind and gluten-free.
And everything has to be, you know what, it's moderation. You can eat whatever you want to eat.
Oh, yeah.
It's moderation. It's going to the gym.
I try to moderate too. I limit myself to only 3 dishes of pasta at a meal.
We try to do it once a week, but we try to enjoy ourselves. But you know what? If I have to exercise. You got to, that's all part of it too. It's not just what you're eating. You have to.
Yeah.
You have to.
You do have to watch.
And you know what? And as you know, as a writer,
you
got to exercise your mind too.
Yep.
And that's where the poetry comes in. So you know what? I've exercised my mind enough, and I'm exercising everything. Everything is going to be basically.
Now you're an artist, but you do not illustrate your poetry books.
No, I don't. I've thought about doing something, and in the back burner right now is possibly because there was a young woman. Well, the young woman who designed this was Cynthia, who did a really nice job on my cover. The woman who helped me do the recipes, her name is Chantal Pena, and she's going to get mad that I'm mentioning her name on air, but you know what, that's okay. But she's a young girl, and she's very creative, and we are in the works possibly of doing maybe a children's book together where I just do the illustrations.
I mean, wouldn't that be wonderful to do a children's recipe book?
Yeah, I could be right around the table with that too. Yeah, there's so many doors that are opening right now. Being in the 29th year of my job, I have 3 more years to go.
Oh, wow.
And I'll have my pension. And I'm like,
got to open up a little restaurant.
Well, my brother's even joked, I think it was my brother or my wife had joked to me once, you got to pick a major. I'm like, I don't have to pick a major. I'm 52. I can do whatever I want to do right now. Whether I want to draw.
That's right.
Whether I want to.
Look at me. I'm all over the place. I do fiction for adults, nonfiction for adults. I do fiction for kids, nonfiction for kids. And I do poetry.
And you do this, and you do this.
And I do this.
And you do this.
And I'm retired. You know, people say, you call that retirement? I said, no, I call it rehirement.
That's right.
That's what it is.
But you're doing what you love to do.
You follow your passion.
Absolutely. My passion is everything.
You are such a wonderful example of following your passion. You go out and you work on football fields during the day, and by night, you're a poet, an artist, a cook. It's amazing. It's amazing.
You got to stretch your imagination. And
You do.
There's nothing anybody can't do. It's whether or not you do it.
Yeah,
And you
that's
try
right.
to do it.
That's right.
You don't have to be perfect at
A
it.
dream is just a dream until you make it a reality.
Absolutely. Couldn't have said that better myself.
Yeah. So,
Yes.
so now, where do you go from here? What's our next book?
I'm getting good feedback on the Poets Table, so I think there will be a volume 2 of that, because when I reached out to my publisher, you know, it's being self-published, you know, it can get expensive, especially with colored pictures. When I did my first book, A Walk Through Time, I was very shy, and I let them tell me what to do.
Yeah.
This book I negotiated like I was Stephen King. I was telling them, I want this I want the picture this big, I want the cover this. I got everything I wanted with this. But she said I was limited to the amount of recipes I can have in it because of the price.
Yeah.
So she said to me, it's not a bad thing, she says, because you can make it your first book of it. And she says, just take your 20 favorite, and I already have another 20 recipes I would do for another book if that opportunity came up, which I think it would. I mean, I enjoy cooking that much, and I enjoy sharing it that much.
Well, keep in mind that there's so many opportunities today with even self-publishing that it's a whole new world.
Absolutely.
And there's people out there who will print on demand, which means that you could actually publish free. And you only make money when the book sells. And the way they can do it is they don't make 1,000 copies or 5,000 copies. They print to order.
Print to order.
So this way you don't have to outlay as much money. So there's a lot of different opportunities, and I encourage the writers to just look at the different opportunities. It's not the way it used to be, where there was only traditional publisher. You had to have a publisher. That publisher had to approve your book. It had to be exactly the way that publisher wanted it to be. Well, things have changed.
Well,
the price of printing.
The price of printing, like I said, the first book was from Publish America, who I don't know that they might have changed their name now.
Yeah.
Ex Libris did A Road Still Driven.
We can't really promote any particular company, but there are companies out there, and there's a whole lot of companies out there.
Definitely.
You need to go online.
You need to go online, you need to research it.
And type in, instead of typing in self-publishing, type in print on demand, and you're going to get a whole lot of options.
That's good.
There's also a number of traditional publishers out there who are easy to work with and eager to have writers like you. And there is a book called Writer's Market, and every year it's put out. And you could go in, and there's hundreds of places to publish your poetry, your cookbooks, your novels, magazine articles. So by all means, you need to find out your options, but even more importantly, you need to write. Writers write. Talkers talk.
That's right.
You can't talk about what you want to do. You got to do it.
Absolutely.
When do you do most of your writing?
To actually put it down on paper, or so-called paper, the laptop would probably be when I get out of work. I'll do a lot of writing. But then again, we'll be watching TV at night, and my wife knows I'm in another world because I'm on my iPhone.
And all of a sudden, you get up in the middle of a movie because
I get up during the night. And
the haunting calls.
You have to. There's no, once you're a writer, you're a writer.
Yeah. I tell, kids say to me, Mr. Dacquino, how do you know you're a writer? And I say, do you have the haunting? And they go, ghosts? I said, no. A little voice in the back of your head that says, go write. And all of a sudden, you just feel like you need to write.
Absolutely.
That's the haunting.
You need to write, you need to express.
Yeah. It's you can call it a haunting, you can call it a calling.
Yeah.
You obviously have the calling.
Yeah.
And your desire to put your thoughts and passions into your work is a gift. And a gift is worth sharing.
Absolutely.
Okay, so now the big question is, Where does Michael go from here?
Like I said, I would like to do a second cookbook. I would like to do a book of sketches.
Will it be Italian recipes?
It will be Italian recipe. It could be more of an American Italian recipe, you know.
Yeah.
Because
But it's not necessarily only for Italians.
No, not at all,
It's
not at all.
Italian. It's understanding Italian cooking for everyone.
I want somebody to be able to pick my book up and say, "This is easy to do."
Yeah.
I don't want, you know, that's what, and I've gotten. That's the feedback I've gotten right now, which is great.
Here's a real tough question.
Sure.
What makes Italian cooking Italian?
The simplicity of it.
The simplicity
You
and
put
maybe the
3 to 4
spices?
yeah, about 3 to 4 ingredients top. If there's anything more than that, they cover each other up. You know, you want to taste the basil. You want to smell and taste the basil. I
There
mean,
you
when
go.
you finish a nice dish of pasta and you put a basil leaf on top, and the steam
yeah.
grabs that, and the basil comes up.
My son makes me a garden every Father's Day, and there's at least 3 different kinds of basil plants in there, because that's the Italian
Absolutely,
secret
yeah.
ingredient.
Basil and garlic.
Yep, basil and
Make
garlic.
a nice
I
pasta
hear ya.
fagioli. You want to smell the garlic in it.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah, it needs to be there.
Needs to be
Well,
there.
Michael, you need to keep doing what you're doing.
Yes.
Keep writing those poetry books. Keep creating. I love your idea of working with kids and creating a book for kids so that they can cook.
Inspire. It's all about
They
inspire.
can find their passions.
Yes.
Any last words you want to give our audience?
I just would say if somebody tells you that you can't do something, to try it anyway. Because I was told maybe I couldn't sketch, or you may not be a writer, or maybe your cooking isn't that good.
Yep.
Well, I've knocked all those boundaries down.
Yep.
Am I the best at anything? Absolutely not.
I used to say that one of the things I loved doing most were things that people said I can't do.
Absolutely.
You tell me I can't do it, and there's my new passion.
And I'm going to do it anyway. I'm going to do it anyway.
I'm going to do it in spite
Absolutely.
of you.
Yeah, absolutely. In
Well,
spite.
I can't thank you enough for joining us.
I thank you.
It's been a treat.
Absolutely.
It really has been a treat. I can't wait to try your recipes. Thank you for joining us. Write a poem a day, and I promise you, you will fulfill your dream as a writer. Thank you for being here today.